The victory over Avitus did not faze the young and energetic Majorian. The talented commander did not intend to put the diadem of ruler on his own head, having satisfied himself with the control over Italy, and began to strengthen his position in the country, the capital, and the eastern part of the empire. Very soon there was a tragic event favorable to the emperor. From gangrene after a pilgrimage, died a harsh and unbending Eastern Emperor Majorian, and the all-powerful family of General Aspar raised to the throne of the natives of the commoners. He was Leo Michela, nicknamed Butcher, but not because he was a cruel shirt, but because before serving in the army, he traded in meat. The nickname, however, will gradually be filled with new meaning because of the subsequent actions of the new emperor, but so far no one knew it. In order to give at least some weight to Emperor Leo, in Constantinople invented a new action. Patriarch Anatoly of Constantinople personally conducted the rite of marriage, an unusual new solemn performance. Over time it became an important tradition in the empire, the touching union of the emperor and the patriarch. They both consolidated their power in this way through the sacrament of marriage. The new emperor was in a hurry to gain allies and friends, and without much thought he issued his recommendations to Majorian. Not far from impregnable Ravenna, Flavius Julius Valerius Majorianus was proclaimed emperor. Near him continued to remain Ricimer, his friend and inspirer of overthrow Avitus. Ambitious Barbarian continued to control the Italian army of mercenaries. In addition, after the overthrow of Avitus, he was awarded the title of patrician, the maximum that could count on a man of barbarian origin in the empire. So the two friends began to realize their daring dreams. Majorian dreamed of restoring the greatness of Rome, Ricimer about his own greatness next to the emperor. Ricimer went on to command an army in Italy, a force that allowed him to keep complete control of the capital and the throne. The emperor did not object, relying on friendship and the barbarian's inability to tag himself onto the emperor's throne. Quickly going through local affairs in Italy, the emperor reduced taxes, by decree forbade issuing permits to citizens of Rome to dismantle abandoned buildings for bricks, arranged officials, and could be calm for his power, at least in the center of the empire. The support of the Senate, the barbarian army with a completely loyal general, support from Constantinople. All this allowed to pay attention to the remaining provinces of the empire. Alas, it was very difficult to extend power there. Ruling in Dalmatia, Marcellinus quickly recognized the authority of the emperor, but continued to fully dispose of the fleet and the army and its taxes. It made no sense to send officials to Dalmatia and wrest autonomy from Marcellinus's hands as long as all the other provinces did not recognize the emperor's authority and principle. The Visigoths were annoyed at the fall of their protege. Not only did they, in alliance with the Burgundians, control almost all of southern Gaul, except for the coastal cities, but after Avitus asked them to clear Spain, they, in alliance with the Burgundians, cleared and established control over almost all of that province. Besides, all of Gaul was full of Avitus's men, who feared for their places and were very unhappy with the fall of their patron. Taking advantage of the power vacuum, the Burgundians and their king Gundioch withdrew from their valley between the Alps and the Jura range, abandoned the capital Geneva and seized the city of Lyon, thereby cutting the road between Arles and northern Gaul, completely cutting off Aegidius's holdings around Paris from the empire's lands to the south. The issue of Lyon was a priority, and Majorian with his army, almost entirely composed of mercenaries, advanced into Gaul. Near Arles he had to fight the Visigoths of Theodoric II, and the Goths were defeated. Theodoric recognized himself as a federate and gave up his conquests in Gaul and Spain. The Burgundians retreated. The active emperor liberated Lyon, brought Aegidius, the Burgundians and the Bagaudians, local rebels against all, into submission, collected in Lyon the taxes not received for the years of turmoil, practically robbing the city, and proceeded to the second part of the plan. Strategically, the emperor realized that without Africa and grain supplies, the rest of the empire's provinces would continue to lose population. Grain was the most powerful tool of power, able to bring people back to the cities and buy the loyalty of any number of barbarian kingdoms. But so far, no one had been able to solve the question of Africa. For years now, the Vandal king had successfully repelled military expeditions from Byzantium and Rome. Having dealt with Gaul, Majorian launched a global and well-prepared operation. First, he engaged Marcellinus. The Dalmatian warlord ruler agreed, and he was instructed to clear the Vandals from the Mediterranean islands and further prepare for a landing in the east. Meanwhile, on the coast of Gaul and Spain, under the supervision of the emperor, was started grandiose construction, cut down overgrown for years of declined forests, and built ships on which the emperor planned to land in the west of the possessions of Haizeric. The emperor himself went to Spain and tried to establish order there, which the poor inhabitants had not seen for almost 40 years. It was practically a military operation against the Suevians and the Bagauds. The plan began to take effect. Massalinus's fleet arrived at Sicily and quickly established power over that island. Geisericus, who had all the merchant ships from Africa at his disposal, immediately put one to one, learned of the construction of the fleet of Marcellinus, and began pelting the emperor with offers of peace. A cunning pirate, Haizeric never informed even his troops of the purpose of his next raid. Now the barbarian felt that once again the clouds were gathering over his fate. Offers of peace were more and more tempting, but the emperor firmly continued his line. Meanwhile, Marcellinus left his garrison in Sicily. The commander began to call himself Lord of Illyricum and Sicily, and went to Sardinia, where he also established his rule without resistance. Staying in Italy, Ritzimeru became clear that his ally taking advantage of the situation strengthens its power, and jealous barbarian could not tolerate this. Returned to Sicily, Lord of Illyricum, Sicily, and Sardinia, Marcellinus found that the garrison he left on the island was rebought by the Italians and is now subject to Ritzimeru. Marcellinus gathered his fleet and left back to Salona, no longer wishing to pull chestnuts out of the fire for the emperor. While the emperor and his army were cleansing Spain of the remaining barbarian bands, his fleet was piling up in the harbor of the city now called Cartagena. However, Gaiseric and here was able to sabotage the great endeavor of the empire, and bribing people burned the fleet when it was finally assembled and ready to perform. True, other historians say that the Vandals themselves appeared with their fleet and burned the ships of Majorian at the moorings. After the pogrom, the emperor received a new peace proposal from the Vandals, in which the Vandals gave up the islands and the empire gave up the claim to all the provinces in Africa. Peace had to be accepted. Disappointed, Majorian disbanded his army, who became resentful that they would no longer be paid and revolted, and sailed back to Italy, leaving his general Nepotian in Spain. Alas, during the 2 years he spent away from Rome, the attitude towards Majorian in the capital had changed greatly. Ritzimer, zealously following the actions in the empire, realized that 40-year-old Majorian turned out to be incredibly active and authoritative. The emperor was bringing order to the empire with a firm hand, and the barbarian began to fear that the power he had seized in Italy would slip from his hands. Again, Majorian's appointments and his court were again recruited from his past associates, without regard to the opinion of the capital's aristocracy. The Senate, as under Avitus, felt disadvantaged. Somewhere in northern Italy, not far from where Avitus was killed, the emperor and several bodyguards were intercepted by Ricimer's men. He was deposed, stripped of his clothes and tiara, tortured and finally beheaded, announcing to the world that the emperor died of dysentery. Apparently wanting to diminish the emperor's good fame a bit, Ricimer told the world that the emperor died of, well, everyone knows what dysentery is. Majorian was 41 years old at the time of his death. Emperor Majorian, who had many positive qualities, was not strong in intrigue, believing the ambitious Ricimer, who rebelled against Avitus, not at all to offer the throne to another. The emperor was sacrificed to barbarian ambition, and after the emperor was sacrificed, and the empire itself, because no province was not going to recognize another impostor, at least voluntarily. Ritzimer could not and did not intend to repeat the feat of Majorian and start military actions to collect the lands. How this barbarian will hold his power, we will explore in the following videos.